Hey guys, welcome back, and we are back together. It's been a very long time since we have done a video together. I think it's been since we went live on the draft since we've done an actual video together.
Since day 2 of the NFL draft, we haven't done a video together at all, but we always save it for the good ones.
Yeah, and today we've got a very special one. We're going 3 rounds today. I did a 2-rounder a couple weeks ago. You guys really enjoyed that, but we're going 3 rounds. He also did a 2-round. So we're going into the 3rd round really kind of empty here. We haven't done one of these before, but I'm really excited about this. You guys know the mock draft guy. I'll leave all his links down in the description below. Do you want odds or evens? We should have talked about this off camera, but
That's completely fine. You know what? I'll take evens on this one.
all right, so we'll just jump right into it with the Chicago Bears.
Wait,
This is the pick.
before you say anything, I haven't been on the channel since you hit 1,000, and I just want to say one thing. Very, very proud of you. You very much deserve it, and I can't wait to see you get to 10, 50, 100, whatever it may be.
I really appreciate that. We tried to get something going for a special, and its schedule didn't align. But we're here. We got the Bears at the number 1 overall pick. We're recording this before Week 10, so the board's going to be a little bit different by the time you guys see this, probably tomorrow. But the Bears have the number 1 pick. This is the Carolina Panthers pick. And look, I think if the Bears are picking at number 1, it's going to be a quarterback. The weird stuff going on with Justin Fields, they had him doubtful, and then they just listed him as they said he wasn't going to play. Bajent has looked good, but I mean, you can't really expect him to be your full-time starter, and I think he had 5 turnovers against the Saints last week, so he's not your long-term answer. Some people are going to go Drake May. It's still Caleb Williams for me. We talked about this the other day. That Washington game, despite the loss, I think was one of the most complete Caleb Williams games I have seen in terms of him just creating on the run. He still does have the hero ball factor, but he seemed to be taking a little bit more of what the defense was giving him, going to his check downs, reading his progressions, and I still think he's the best quarterback in this class. So I'm going to go Caleb Williams at number 1 overall.
Yeah, that would be the pick for me as well. I mean, basically what you said, nailed it on the head. These first 2 picks, really the first top 5 are pretty much layups for us on this one, especially since we're going no trades. But if we're going no trades here, I fully believe, I said this in my comment section on my last mock, I firmly believe if you are a franchise that does not need a quarterback inside the top 3, I don't think you should be drafting there. I think you should be looking to trade down every single time. I just think those 3 spots are usually reserved for a quarterback, depending on the class, of course, but especially a class like this, I would be expecting, if Chicago was to go with Caleb Williams, that there would be a mass panic of teams trying to trade up to number 2 to get Drake May or whoever it may be, honestly. But Arizona's at number 2. They have their quarterback in place. Let's go get Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, Marvin Harrison Jr. is, I think, the best overall player in this entire class. His hands, his speed, his size, really everything you want from a wide receiver, you've got it in Marvin Harrison Jr. And then you pair him alongside Marquise Brown, Rondale Moore, Michael Wilson, who was one of my guys last year. I mean, you got a nice thing going there in Arizona, so I like that pick. The Giants, you talked about another easy one. It's Drake May. It doesn't look like you're going to have Daniel Jones there. Obviously, he had the ACL tear. Tyrod Taylor's not a starter. Daniel Jones, that contract was terrible from the day they signed it, and it just looks even worse now. They've got a number of picks in day 2, but I think you've got to go quarterback. Drake May has an insane arm. He, again, very mobile. He's been very accurate, especially deep down the field. And I think they're going to go to the other school in North Carolina, and they're going to take Drake May as their future quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, when people say, oh, well, what are they going to do with Daniel Jones? Listen, I know it doesn't sound as palatable, but after next year, you're going to have to bite the bullet. I mean, you trade him, you're going to have to pay. You keep him, you're going to have to pay. You cut him. I mean, well, they obviously wouldn't cut him. That would be ridiculous. They'd owe him $96 million up front if they cut him. But they're going to have to hang on to him because that's probably the best way to get out. Afterwards, his contract becomes very tradable. $22 million in 2025 becomes much more palatable for teams. I think you just get Drake May. you have to, this franchise right now, they don't really have assets to be trading around. They just kind of need to take what's on the board, and what's on the board is probably the best, most pro-ready quarterback in the class. I'm just going to go out there and say it, but I think that's a great pick. New Orleans, New England at pick number 4. Tough here because the top 2 quarterbacks are off the board. We're not trading. This is too early in my opinion, even though I'm a big-time lover of Michael Penix Jr., J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix even. I think this is a little too early. I think that maybe come round 2, round 3, there might be someone there. We know how Bill Belichick drafts, or I should say we don't know how Bill Belichick drafts, but I think there's one thing certain. Offensive line is a huge need for the New Orleans. I said New Orleans again. Jeez, the New England Patriots. We're going Olaf Fashanu at number 4.
Yeah. I think that's another no-brainer. I mean, Olaf Fashanu is a beast at the left tackle position, and it's a deep quarterback class. Maybe you can get lucky and get a guy like Jaden Daniels in day 2. We'll see what the board ends up looking like, but you got to address that O-line. Trent Brown getting up there in age and very inconsistent. They've got some pieces on the interior, and Onwenu, who I think is a free agent after this year as well, but they have to address that offensive line, and I think Olaf Fashanu is the right pick. This pick's always tough for me with the Bears because their offensive line really isn't as terrible as people make it out to be. I still don't think it's one of the top units, but Braxton Jones had a really good rookie year, was looking good, got banged up. He's looked solid this year. You got Darnell Wright on the right side. The interior, you've got some question marks about, but Joe Alt is here. That could be the pick. I don't think I'm going to do that, though. I think I'm going to go with an edge rusher. And, I think I'm going to take I'm looking at the board here. I'm trying to see which edge rusher makes the most sense to Chicago. I think I'm going to take Dallas Turner, a guy who I think has really good size. He's really quick for his size as well. Long arms. He's developing more as a pass rusher, which was my big complaint with him last year, and he's just getting better and better. And he's a great run stopper as well. I think this is the right pick. You got Montez Sweat. Yannick Ngakoue is on a 1-year contract, but now you have Dallas Turner and you got Montez Sweat, which I think is a pretty frightening pass rush duo for NFC North team. So I'm going to go a little off the board here, and I'm going to take Dallas Turner.
Yeah, I like that pick. You pair Montez Sweat with someone like Dallas Turner, who's probably going to be running close to, the low 4.5s, maybe even the high 4.4s. That's a devastating speed combo right there off the edge. I mean, Turner, in my opinion, probably fits more of a 3.4, a little bit better than a 4.3. He doesn't really have that mass that you would like 6'4", 242, but he's got the speed. And that's the thing too, because look at Will Anderson Jr. Will Anderson Jr. has the same archetype, same body, and he plays in a 4.3, and he's been quietly, even though he only has 2 sacks, having an excellent rookie season. So I like that a lot. I think that's a very, very smart pick. Safe pick for the most part because it's a need, and you're getting face value with Dallas Turner. Number 6 with the Rams, a couple different ways that they can go here. I think there's one player on the board that I really can't pass up at this point, though. A player that I wouldn't normally think would be here at this point. Corner is a need. It definitely is. But as you know, I've been well documented saying I don't really know if any of these guys are truly worth a top 10 pick.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going cornerback crazy the last few years. We've seen a cornerback craze that we've never seen before, of guys that are top 5 talents that are immediately turning out all pro seasons. Sauce Gardner comes to mind, guys like that. I'm going to go away from cornerback. I'm going to address the offensive line. I'm going to go with Joe Alt at number 6. I think even though they still have Rob Havenstein and Joseph Noteboom under contract, I've seen Noteboom take snaps at guard this year, which means to me that they just don't trust him at the tackle position anymore. I think Alt slides right in on either side that you want him to play, and he's just it probably instantly the best offensive lineman that they have.
Yeah, I like that pick as well. I think that's the no-brainer. Alt usually is a top 5 guy, but I think this is a great spot for him to go. We got the Packers here, and I think there's a number of ways you could go. Receiver could be a need. You could look on that interior. Jerzon Newton, we both love that guy. Don't really know if this is the spot for him. You could go quarterback, Michael Penix, J.J. McCarthy on the board. You could go O-line as well. There's just a number of ways where the Packers can go. I think I don't really know where to go, but I do know David Bakhtiari is probably not going to be with the Packers next year. And is a really, really good tackle class. And there's a number of guys that you could go out and get. You could go get J.C. Latham. You could get Amarius Mims, who I personally have ahead of Latham. I know he's injured right now, but his versatility
doesn't matter, yeah.
Yeah, he, I think, could be incredible. Or you could go to Talise Fuaga, who's been flying up boards, maybe kick Zach Tom over to left tackle. I'm going to go with J.C. Latham here. I think he is just a brick wall. He's my biggest concern with him. He gives up on plays a little bit early, but I think as a blocker, pure strength and power, he is right up there at the top of this class. And I think Green Bay, a team that needs to address tackle, I think J.C. Latham could play left or right side and be a day one starter for them.
I like that a lot. I do. I'm not going to lie, a surprise pick from you, in my opinion, because I know we've had discussions about J.C. Latham before, but it makes too much sense, honestly. And I said the same thing in my mock. I was like, it's time. Bakhtiari's time has come. He's more injured than not at this point. You need to, first and foremost, if we're not going to really, judge Jordan Love off of this year, we have to give him an offensive line. We have to give him maybe some more weapons. And then next year, this is uncharted territory for Green Bay Packers fans. In my lifetime, I'm not a Packers fan, but in my lifetime, the Green Bay Packers have had 2 quarterbacks. That's insane. This is uncharted territory for Packers fans. So I think they need to be a little bit patient, need to give Jordan Love a little bit more of a chance next year, see what they do for him. I like that pick a lot. Like you said, he's a brick wall, 6'7", 360 pounds. He's just massive. He's massive. So in turn, Tampa Bay at number 8, very interesting. There's a lot of quarterbacks still on the board. I believe in Baker Mayfield. I'll be the first one to say that the shortcomings of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year have not been on Baker Mayfield. He's been fairly good.
Yeah.
Again, I think I'm going to go a little bit outside the box with this pick. The secondary has not been good for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I know I just said that I don't know if any of these corners are worth a top 10 pick, but I think if Kool-Aid McKinstry is still there at number 8, I think with the struggles that they've had, the first 3 games, the Buccaneers secondary was great. I think they gave up like 1 touchdown in the first 3 games through the air. It's completely fallen apart since then. I think they need to address it before it gets even more out of hand, and you go get Kool-Aid McKinstry here at number 8.
Yeah, Carlton Davis has been absolutely atrocious for Tampa Bay this year. Jamel Dean, they paid. I still like Dean, but Carlton Davis has been a liability for them. Kool-Aid McKinstry, top 10 player on my board, and I think his size, he's quick, doesn't have the physicality necessarily, but I think he is a beast, and I love this fit for him. Definitely didn't see it going there, but I do like that pick quite a bit. The Denver Broncos here at number 9. I think you got to get another pass rusher. Well, a pass rusher. I don't think you have one to begin with, really. And Jared Verse is a guy that sticks out. I like Verse quite a bit. I don't like him necessarily in this scheme. I know he's super athletic, but scheme-wise, I don't think he fits what the Broncos want to do.
I know what you're going to do.
Latu is a guy who I think fits this scheme, and I'm going to take him. He's been off the charts for UCLA this year. He's got great size. He's quick, and he's just been wreaking havoc on quarterbacks in the Pac-12. I think he fits exactly what Denver wants to do defensively, and he's going to be my pick for them.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Nick Bonito has been a really nice surprise for Denver, but he can't do it alone. That's literally it. It's been Nick Bonito and really that much. So Latu is an excellent player, scheme versatile for his size. 6'5", 265 pounds, can play OLB, could even play on the line. Really, really like him as a prospect. In turn, funny enough, the man who completely stonewalled him against Oregon State is my next pick at number 10. I'm going to go with Talise Fuaga here at number 10. I think that Fuaga's game matches exactly what Tennessee's trying to do on offense.
Yeah. That's like the most perfect fit for any of these prospects, I think, is Talise Fuaga to the Titans. Team that wants to run the football, and he does have that nasty in the run game. He is a mauler in the run game. I love this fit for him. I think that makes a lot of sense. We got the Falcons at number 11. This is an interesting one. You could go Jared Verse, get another edge rusher, but you've got really, outside of the top 2 quarterbacks, they're all still here. Desmond Ridder is not the guy. I don't think Taylor Heineke's the guy either. You've got to get some help. There's some edge guys down the board that I think could be pretty solid fits for them. You got to go quarterback, and it's between J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix for me. McCarthy, I think, was 7 of 8 for 60 yards today against Penn State. I think that was his final stats, which is mind-boggling. But I kind of like McCarthy's versatility in this Falcons offense. I think his ability to run the ball, he can hit guys. I think he fits a little bit better than Penix, who wants to air the ball out more than McCarthy. I think I'm going to take McCarthy here. I think he could be that game manager for Atlanta and be their long-term answer. So we're going to go with J.J. McCarthy.
As a Michael Penix Jr. Fan club member, that stings a little bit, I'm not going to lie. But it is, it's funny because when Atlanta was picking earlier in the season, in the 20s, I said Bo Nix would be a perfect pick because he's that a little bit more than a game manager, potential superstar guy that you're looking at. And this is perfect because J.J. McCarthy is super young for the quarterback position. I don't think people realize that if he's picked this high and he starts, he will be 21 years old starting in the NFL at the most important position. That's a big task to ask. And you're asking Desmond Ridder to be a game manager at this point, and he can't even do that right. I'm assuming that J.J. McCarthy could come in and do a much better job. I like that pick a lot. And then you have the sky is the limit for J.J. McCarthy. I think, honestly, outside of Caleb Williams, the highest ceiling of any of these quarterbacks is J.J. McCarthy.
And going back to the Michael Penix thing, I'm right there with you in the fan club, but I think McCarthy, a little bit of a better fit, younger, as you mentioned, doesn't have that injury history. Mm-hmm. So I think McCarthy makes a lot of sense here to Atlanta.
Washington at 12, I'm not going to overthink it. It's going to be Amarius Mims for me. I know that Jared Verse is still on the board, but I can't pass up what Mims could bring to the table for Washington.
Yeah, I like that pick quite a bit. Okay, so we got the Colts here. There's a debate and a war going on in Colts Twitter. What do you do with this pick? Do you go receiver or do you go corner? Our secondary is terrible, but you've had so many injuries in that secondary. So maybe you hold off. I'm just going to say it. I'm going receiver here. Keon Coleman's got to be the pick. I just saw right before we started recording, he had a punt return for like 60 yards. There's like nothing he can't do. Yeah. He's physical. He's fast. Great route runner. He's a excellent receiver, and he complements Pittman and Downs so perfectly. I got to go Keon Coleman here.
Yeah, it makes too much sense to me, to be honest with you. Kind of like the same pick here. If Las Vegas is picking at number 14, it's really tough. It's so tough for me because literally the two darling prospects for me, are right here on the board. And it's so tough because both fit so well. I'm thinking Michael Penix Jr. I'm thinking Jerzon Newton. I'm going to have to pick. I know it's crazy. I'm going to have to pick Michael Penix Jr. here for this one. I think for the Raiders, honestly, especially if Devontae Adams stays, I really think offensively, because their line is not as bad as people think. If you look at the stats, every player outside of right tackle has been top 15 for the position so far this year. So they're holding their own. It's just that, Jimmy Garoppolo was that immobile that he was just getting, stoned every single snap. So I think Penix comes in. He's more mature. I think he could step into an offense like this and just produce right away. Whereas someone like J.J. McCarthy, maybe even someone like Bo Nix, who this might sound crazy to say, even though he's a little bit older and has like the most starts in FBS history, he might be a little green to the pro style offense. I think someone like Michael Penix Jr. could just come in, could just learn anything, and just with that arm talent, that, ball placement, just playmaking ability, I think he'd be a huge smash hit in Las Vegas.
I haven't seen him to Vegas yet in any mock. I like that fit, though. Him with Devontae Adams, you immediately have weapons around him. Mm-hmm. Good line. Yeah, I like that fit for him. Another fit I like, and I know I believe Michael Marlowe, he talks about every time. We got to keep going back to the well. It's Jerzon Newton here. It's got to be the pick. Their interior isn't great, And Jerzon Newton is an absolute superstar. His run stuffing ability is incredible for his size, but he's also a dynamic pass rusher. He can do everything on your defensive line. Some have compared him to Aaron Donald. By some, I mean me and you. And yeah, I think he's going to be a really, really good starter. So, especially in Gannon's defense, I think he makes all the sense in the world.
All right. You ready for this one?
I'm ready.
Okay. This is super outside the box, and you'll never see this in any other mock, I'm pretty sure. I've never seen it. So New York Jets, my New York Jets are at number 16. My two biggest needs for them is tackle and safety. You got some great tackles left. Maybe not the top elite talent. You got some really great guys here. You don't have another pick until, 82?
Yeah.
I get it. There's a lot of safeties around, too. The Jets want another weapon for Aaron Rodgers. And there's no better weapon on the board right now than Brock Bowers.
I like this.
I'm going to take Brock Bowers to my New York Jets because, first off, it makes sense from a tight end perspective. They drafted Jeremy Ruckert in the 3rd round in 2022. He's actually been fantastic. Maybe not in the receiving realm, but as a blocker, he's been top 5 in the entire NFL in terms of his blocking grade. He's been really, really good, and he can catch passes when needed. Conklin could become a cap casualty. I mean, what's his name? CJ Uzomah definitely should be a cap casualty at this point going into next year. So right away, you only have one tight end on the roster. You get Brock Bowers, you take care of your tight end. I mean, yeah, Brock Bowers and Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall on an offense. I know that they have no offensive line, and they're probably going to have to invest quite heavily in the offseason. But I think they're willing to do that more than risk it in the draft. You have a 40-year-old quarterback coming off of an ACL injury. An Achilles injury. You're going to want to get established guys in free agency. I don't think we're willing to take a chance on these younger guys that are going to go through growing pains. The hardest transition of any position from college to the NFL is offensive line.
Yeah.
We've seen it with Andrew Thomas. He took 2 years. He was terrible. Now he's an all-pro. We don't have 2 years here for the Jets, and we don't have 2 years for Aaron Rodgers. We need established guys now, and then we need a amazing weapon like Brock Bowers.
For a split second there, I thought you were going to take Bo Nix, but
no, that would be horrible.
I like the Bowers pick. Also, he does provide quite a bit in the blocking department as well. If they need an extra blocker as well, so really like that move for him. The Chargers at number 17, and this is interesting. You talked about some of the safeties. I think their secondary, they looked pretty good against the Jets, but I mean, it's Zach Wilson. So how much stock are we putting in that? I think this is an easy pick for me. It's going to be Cooper DeJean. I had said, you brought up the Taysom Hill thing in your video. I had brought up if Cordero Patterson played defense, he'd be Cooper DeJean because he can do everything defensively. Play in the nickel, can play outside on some plays. Safety's probably where he's going to play. You had the unforeseen retirement of Nasir Adderley, so safety was immediately in need for them anyways. Cooper DeJean, I think, is one of the most complete defensive backs in this entire class. I'm going to take him here to the Chargers at 17.
I like that pick a lot. That's a pick that we saw early on in the year, and people got away from it, but it just makes too much sense right now, especially with, everything that's going on in LA, and I broke their hearts, maybe because they broke my heart on Monday night. Maybe I break their hearts by taking Brock Bowers right before they picked, but that honestly didn't factor into it until just now, I promise. But number 18 here, this is a very tantalizing pick. I'm not going to lie, because believe it or not, a lot of Buffalo fans don't want to admit that their pass rush absolutely needs help. With Von Miller getting back up to speed and Greg Rousseau being banged up, and that's really it. They don't really have much else. The interior of their defensive line is not great either. Safety is a big need as well. I could see Cameron Kinchins being a really nice pick here. I'm going to hold off on that because Rome Odunze is still on the board, and that's who I'm going to take. I think the Buffalo Bills offense is getting a tad bit stale at this point. I like what Dalton Kincaid has been bringing, but I'm pretty sure Gabe Davis is going to get wide receiver 1 money in free agency, and the Buffalo Bills are not going to be willing to pay that. And I think you replace him with someone who might honestly be better right away in Rome Odunze.
Yeah, I like the pick. I think I might have gone with Kalen King or Nate Wiggins there because their secondary has been so bad this year.
Yeah,
for Rasul
a lot of injuries.
Yeah, but I like Odunze. I do think Gabe Davis is gone, and I think Odunze with Josh Allen would be must-see TV. We got the Saints here. It's Jared Verse. He's still on the board. I think they need some more help in the edge rush department. And Verse, like I mentioned earlier, he is my top edge rusher in the entire class. Mm-hmm. So for him to still be on the board here at 19 is incredible value for the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. Absolutely. That was going to be my pick easily there too. You have Minnesota here at number 20. I'm going to hold off on quarterback here only because we just don't know. We've heard so many, and also Bo Nix is the next best quarterback on the board. I'm going to hold off on that maybe even until round 2, round 3, who knows. But Justin Jefferson has gone on record as saying, hey, I want Kirk Cousins as my quarterback. Now, I don't know about you. I'm not really in the player-pleasing realm. But if there's one player that I'd like to keep happy in the NFL, it's probably Justin Jefferson. Yeah. So, I mean, there's obviously history there. Kirk might, at this point in his career, might want to go to someone that's a little bit more in contention for a Super Bowl than Minnesota, but it's hard to argue with that offense being at full strength. There's few offenses that are better. I mean, especially when it comes to, you got a fearsome trio of Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and you have TJ Hawkinson, not to mention Alexander Madison, KJ Osborne, guys like that. I think we're okay in that realm. I think we're going to look to the defense that's actually been Brian Flores has turned this defense from one of the most untalented, unproven units to actually playing respectable football. So I'm going to add to that. I'm going to take Kalen King here at number 20.
Yeah, I like that pick. Good player. He's got good speed, great ball skills, and I think, a secondary that has over-exceeded expectations without a doubt, but still think they need to add some pieces there. The Cowboys here at 21, and this is a pick I love making for them, and I just don't see it done a whole lot, but Michael Gallup has been disappointing. I know he's coming off injuries, but he hasn't been the guy that they want him to be. You got Brandon Cooks. He's getting up there in age. I think you're going to need to go get another receiver at some point. And I like Emeka Egbuka's fit here. While I'm not the highest on Emeka Egbuka, I think he's a good player. I think he fits very well next to Cooks, next to CeeDee Lamb. You could kind of play him on the outside, play him in the slot. I think he could be a very nice weapon for this team. We know Jerry Jones has had a history of taking guys from Ohio State in the first round. It's worked out pretty well in the past, so I'm going to go with Emeka Egbuka here at 21.
I like that. It's a pick that I don't see too often in video mocks or articles. A pick that I make every time for the Pittsburgh Steelers is a pick that I'm going to make again. Corner, besides for JPJ looking like an absolute stud early on in his career, we're going to have to go with Nate Wiggins here at number 22.
Yeah, I like that pick. Nate Wiggins video probably coming up next week. Going to do some reevaluation of him, but he's been fantastic this year for Clemson. The Texans here at 23, this is a tough pick for me to make every time because they're playing very good football right now. This is from the Browns, so this is not the Texans pick, but they're playing great football right now. A position that I feel like we don't talk about enough as a need is corner. I know Derek Stingley's been injured, but I think you could look to go corner here. And, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go off the board here, do something I haven't done before, but I'm going to take Denzel Burke out of Ohio State. Another guy who's had a really, really solid season. I like the pick here. Could play well with DeMeco Ryans. You got Derek Stingley there. He'll be healthy. I'm going to take Denzel Burke here.
I love it. I love the pick, especially from you because I'm not going to say that you were a disbeliever, but both of us at the beginning of the season were a little bit cold on his tape. He's really been excellent this year. He has. He's been a huge reason why Ohio State's defense has been as good as it is. So I like that a lot. You just add to a very talented young secondary that already has Stingley, Jalen Petrie, guys like that. I love it. Cincinnati, I'm not going to overthink this one. We're going with an LSU wide receiver. We're going with Malik Neighbors here.
Yeah, I just think his deep ball ability, man, his speed off the line of scrimmage is unreal. I think him with Burrow, you got that LSU connection. Not that they ever played together, but I think that's going to be a great pick. Before you can do it for the 49ers, because I know you want to, again, I'm taking Bo Nix here to the Seattle Seahawks.
Knew it. God dang it.
They need a quarterback. Wow, they have Bo Nix way too low on here.
Yeah, they do.
Bo Nix has been phenomenal this year. He was great last year as well. And a guy I have had to do a reevaluation of and kind of look into again, but he's been fantastic. He makes the right decisions with the football. He's mobile. And while he doesn't have the greatest arm in the world, I think you need a replacement for Geno long-term. He's not the guy long-term. He's had a bit of a down year. Seattle needs a quarterback, and I'm going to take Bo Nix here. I think he's the top quarterback left on the board.
I like it. I do. You know what my pick would have been there. Probably Troy Fautanu probably would have been the pick. But I like that a lot. It makes sense. And honestly, I was at first I wasn't really coming around to it, but over the past couple weeks, I think it's one of the best fits, honestly, for Bo Nix. San Fran's tough for me here. Reason why? Obvious need is tackle. Obvious need, right tackle, huge hole. Also, Trent Williams is not getting any younger. You're going to need to replace him at some point. Wide receiver speaks out to me a lot here too, though. What happens if Brandon Ayuk is not back next year? That it's a question that we're going to have to answer at some point. I think I'll hold off on it for right now. Going to have to go with Graham Barton here. Another guy that I've been teetering on for a little while now, but I'm really starting to see and like the versatility in his game. I like his athletic ability. A little bit light in the bridges for tackle at an even 300, but we've seen stranger things. I mean, look at Bernard Ryman from your Colts, a guy that entered the league at 299 pounds and has been one of the best tackles in football this season. So I like the Graham Barton pick there.
Yeah, and he could kick inside, play center. I think Jake Brendel, I believe that's their starting center. He hasn't been particularly incredible for them. So he could play anywhere on the offensive line. I think that makes sense. Plug and play guy for him. We got the Dolphins here at 27. I mean, I feel like this is going to be a continuous pick. You make it. And the more I think about it, I don't like him as a run blocker. Patrick Paul is one of the best pass blockers in this entire class. He is I know I called JC Latham a brick wall. Patrick Paul is massive. I believe he's like 6'6", 360 pounds, something like that. He is a freak athlete and a team that wants to air the ball out. I think this is great for what this team wants to do. I think he has worked himself up continuously to up my board. I think he makes a lot of sense here to Miami.
I love it. I mean, obviously, that's a pick, like you said, I make all the time. It's just one of those picks that makes too much sense. Like you would just be trying to be controversial if you're changing it at that point, and that's why there's some picks that I make every week because they just make too much sense. I'm not trying to be too controversial, like Nate Wiggins to Pittsburgh and all that kind of stuff. Love that pick. I think it's perfect for what the Dolphins are trying to do on offense. Jacksonville at number 28. This is going to be JT Tuimoloau for me here. The guy has just been incredible this season. I mean, they are just studs up and down the board on this Ohio State defense this year. This is one of the best classes for them I've seen in quite some time. He's been a guy that I was a little hot and cold on for the most part. Hot at the beginning of the year, cold towards the middle. He had a little bit of a cold streak, but he is as hot as can be, and he's shown that, honestly, the reason I like him here a lot more than maybe Chop Robinson is because, first off, the size. He has the size to play on the interior in the 3-4. He does. 6'4", 275 pounds is more than enough size for me to play on the line.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about him as a potential inside guy because at first I'm like, I don't know how he fits the scheme. I still love Braylon Trice. That's one of my dudes in this class. But I think Tuimoloau, he's been great the last few weeks, and he really showed out. I mean, last year he had that one great game against Penn State, and then, was pretty average the rest of the year. But the last few weeks, he's definitely showcased that he can be a first-round pick. So I like the move for Jacksonville. Detroit's an interesting team to pick for, I feel like. Corner could be a need. Don't really see a corner that I'm going to take here in the back half of round 1. You could talk Kamari Lassiter. I love Lassiter, but I don't think this is the right spot for him. You could go into your defensive line. Really, everybody's on the board other than Jerzon Newton. You could go edge rusher. I like Braylon Trice. I talked about him as a complement to Aiden Hutchinson. You could even go receiver. You could go right guard. There's a million ways you could go. Safety could even be in play here. I think I'm going to go with one of my guys, and I know you're higher on T'Vondre Sweat, but Leonard Taylor is still one of my guys, and I think this is the area where he could thrive in more one-on-ones at a 4-3 where he's not playing nose tackle like he has been for a lot of this year. Last year, he had a ridiculous pass rush win rate, and
it's tough for me too.
Yeah, he's just not been put in those situations this year. He is much more than a space eater. He's a fantastic athlete. I think he would be great in this Detroit defense. So I'm going to take Leonard Taylor.
Yeah, I like it. I'm not going to say that. Oh, yeah, that's terrible. I think that's a really good pick. I do. Baltimore here. Not going to lie, not the biggest fan of the corners that are on the board for the defensive scheme.
Yeah.
Same thing with the defensive line. T'Vondre Sweat is a guy that could start right in the middle of that defense. Tyleek Williams is someone that could start in the middle of that defense. Not really thinking that the Baltimore Ravens are going to spend a first-round pick on something like that. Rashad Bateman is coming to an end of a disappointing time in a Ravens uniform. Odell Beckham is on a 1-year deal. I think we need to get another weapon in here. I'm going A.D. Mitchell with this one here. I like A.D. Mitchell a lot to Baltimore. He fits that size-speed combination that we look for a Baltimore Ravens wide receiver. 6'4", 200 pounds. He could win downfield. I think that this would be automatically the deep ball threat for Lamar Jackson. And, I mean, you got Mark Andrews, then you got Zay Flowers. You got something really going there.
Yeah, Adonai Mitchell, another guy that wasn't high on coming into the year. Limited tape at Georgia, just didn't play a ton. Looked very, very good. I believe they played Kansas State last week, and I was like, oh, okay. Now I see where people are coming from because he's a fantastic athlete, so I like the pick quite a bit. Another guy who's a fantastic athlete is Xavier Legette, and I like Troy Franklin here as well, but I mean, Xavier Legette is bigger, he's stronger, I feel like has more sure hands, he's physical, fast. I mean, Legette is awesome. I remember texting you right after I did it. I'm like, who is this guy? And why is he not getting enough love? He's a bit of an older wide receiver prospect, but the guy is fantastic. I think I said he reminded me of A.J. Brown. And if you had a guy that was similar to A.J. Brown with Patrick Mahomes, it's kind of game over for the rest of the league. So I'm going to take Xavier Legette here to Kansas City.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you an unbelievable stat about Xavier Legette that will blow your mind. You ready for this one?
I'm ready.
I've never even heard of a stat like this before, and I sat here in contemplation when I heard this. This season, Legette leads the FBS and FCS, for that matter, in 30-plus yard receptions with 15.
Jeez.
15 catches over 30 yards is insane. That's
450
ridiculous.
Yards right there for
it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. And right then and there, that's what you need to know about that freak athlete. I'm going to go with a little bit of an outside the box here pick. I love Cam Kinchins to Philadelphia here, but I'm not going to do that because that is not the Philadelphia Eagle Howie Roseman way. I'm taking Troy Fautanu here at pick number 32.
You're going to do that.
Yeah, I think that with I mean, he's listed as a tackle, sure. He's going to kick inside, maybe even center, guard. What Philadelphia loves to do the past few years is they love to take these centers in college, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, and they like to put them on the outside at guard. So I think Cam Jurgens after this year, it all depends on what Jason Kelce does, but Howie Roseman is a planner. He would be willing to take a guy like Fautanu in the first round, maybe have him play a different position, maybe even have him sit like they did with Cam Jurgens. And then after, Kelce retires, then someone would take over there. But I think the long-term plan is Jurgens slides over to center, and then you get someone like Fautanu that could play guard, who has some of the best footwork and technique of this entire class.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick. Now I'm looking at the upcoming picks. I'm like, how far is Cam Kitchens going to fall? Because I don't think I'm going to take him here. You got Budda Baker there. I mean, there's been trade talks. You can consider it, but I'm not going to do it. I think I am going to go with a tackle. A guy who I personally really like, and I'm still pretty high on. They moved him to left tackle this year. Think he could play on that right side. I'm going to take Kingsley Suamataia out of BYU. Great tackle. As I mentioned, played right tackle last year, was phenomenal at right tackle. They played him at left tackle. Still kind of learning the position. You got Paris Johnson last year. Put him back on the left side. Put Kingsley to the right side. And I think you've got your nice bookend tackles there. So I'm going to go with Kingsley Suamataia here.
I like that. I do. One of the freakiest athletes in the entire class. He's going to have a high RAS score, so I fully expect the New York Jets to be all over it once those drop, because apparently that's the only way that they draft. I'm still salty about the Will McDonald pick, by the way.
The Colts do the same thing. We do the same thing.
I'm still salty about it. You know I am. That was literally one of the greatest draft day reactions of all time, the Will McDonald pick. Carolina at pick number 34 here. Interesting spot. A lot of great talent left on the board here. This has to be a wide receiver, though. I mean, we've seen some of the saddest performances in the last few weeks from the Carolina offense. It's simply because they don't have a guy that could be a number one. Adam Thielen, let's be real. He's putting up a great season, but the majority of his stats are garbage time for the most part. I mean, the game is already well out of reach by the time that he's making plays. I think they need a guy that can go out there and just make incredible plays. And for me, that's going to be Jalen Polk at 34. I think this guy is steadily rising up the boards. 6'4", 210 pounds on the outside. Before, I had to do a couple things. I was watching Utah versus Washington. He made some incredible contested catches. I mean, the guy is just he's really, really good. And I'm kind of fortunate, or not fortunate, I should say. The Jalen McMillan injury, or the injuries earlier on in the season, kind of opened up the door for Jalen Polk to showcase his talent, and that's exactly what he's doing, is being fantastic.
Yeah, I looked at him the other day. He's been great this year. Good speed, great first step. I think he's going to be great. I like the pick. I think we're going to stay on the wide receiver train. Thought about Jaden Daniels for about a tenth of a second, but Troy Franklin's still on the board, and you talk about sad wide receiver play. Just watch the Patriots wide receivers. I know Pop Douglas, he's had like a game and he looked okay, but now you have Kendrick Bourne out for the year. Their receiving room is atrocious, and I think Troy Franklin is a really, really good weapon. So I'm going to go with Troy Franklin here. We're going to see a little runoff receivers, and I like this move for New England.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot too. I mean, you get someone that would be really nice with Douglas on the other side. You get two guys that are kind of super speedy. One guy, obviously, Franklin, is more of the wide receiver one archetype. Douglas would be a fantastic wide receiver too. I think you got something cooking there for whoever's under center in New England next year. Giants at pick number 36. I'm not going to really overthink this one here. I'm going to go with Brian Thomas out of LSU. I've kind of had this the last few picks here, or a run on guys that are like 6'4", 200-something pounds. And that's but Brian Thomas has just been fantastic this season. I mean, everyone wants to give all the praise to Malik Neighbors, which he absolutely deserves. He's been awesome. But Brian Thomas has been just as good, if not better.
Yeah, Brian Thomas, guy I looked at, I believe, yesterday. I liked what I saw from him. Was just making big play after big play, and just I think he's a little bit more physical than Malik Neighbors as well, which is something I like from him. Now you got Drake May with a bona fide. I think he could be a number one receiver in the league. So I'm going to take him. Washington, not overthinking it. Rob Robinson's still on the board. I'm sorry.
You said I'm going to take him. I said, well, I took him. So
Washington, no brainer. Chop Robinson still on the board. Easy pick for me here. You trade Montez Sweat, you trade Chase Young. Go get another edge. Maybe go get two. They got another pick at 43. We'll see what happens there. But I love it. Chop Robinson, best player on the board.
Yeah, Chop is kind of like a like-for-like replacement of Montez Sweat. I think that's a really nice pick there. No brainer. I mean, you win and lose in the trenches in today's NFL, and I think the first two picks are really, really can't miss for Washington. The Rams here at 38. going to go with Kamari Lassiter. I think that he's the best cornerback on the board. I think corner is a huge need here. Could have went with edge, to be fair. Braylon Trice is on the board, but I don't really love the fit for the most part right now. I think Lassiter kind of gets a weaker position out of the way for the Rams.
Yeah, Lassiter is a guy I loved last year. I like what I've seen from him this year. No reason to do anything. I think a Rams secondary that's not that great. So I like Kamari Lassiter. I'm between two guys here, and I like Braylon Trice quite a bit. I think that's probably going to be the pick. I'm not going to get too crazy here. I'm going to take Braylon Trice, best guy on the board. He's been fantastic the last couple of weeks. Yeah. I think he had, was it like 17 pressures in a game a few weeks ago? He's been off the charts. I think he leads the FBS in pressures this year. I thought about Jaden Daniels, but I want to go with Braylon Trice here because Shaq Barrett's getting up there in age. Haven't really gotten anything from Tryon Shiinka, so go get another edge rusher. And I'm going to take Braylon Trice, who I think is going to be a really good player.
Yeah, same thing here with New Orleans. I'm not going to overthink this pick at all. Cam Kinchins is still on the board. I mean, if the New Orleans Saints could walk away with the first two picks, Jared Verse and Cam Kinchins, they've won the first 40 picks of the draft.
Yeah, Kitchens, I think, is going to probably go in the first round. Just didn't end up happening in this one. But I'm not going to give too much opinions on him because haven't really dove into the safety class yet. But Kitchens, I think, is going to be a really solid player from everything I'm hearing. Titans, receiver, I think that's a no-brainer. Treylon Burks, which it gets worse every week for me because I don't know if you remember this first draft cycle we did together. I was all aboard the Treylon Burks train. He was my wide receiver one in the class. He was my wide receiver one over Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, all those guys. It looks awful now. And he's shown flashes, but he just can't stay healthy like he should. Tennessee, though, I'm going to go with Xavier Worthy. I do think he is the best receiver on the board. I haven't fully given up on him. He's got some focus drops, but he's quick. He's a really sharp route runner, and I think you got to help Will Levis out. You got him a tackle, go get him a receiver, and I think Xavier Worthy has the ability to take the top off of defense. And I think he's going to be the pick here.
Yeah, going to have to agree with you on that one. For Green Bay, literally every single safety on their roster is a free agent this upcoming season. And even if they weren't, they still need an upgrade at the position. Tyler Nubin comes with a rare blend of playmaking ability and size at 6'2", 210. He's exceptional. He's an exceptional hitter. He's an exceptional coverage guy. I love him. I think this would be an excellent pick for the Green Bay Packers. So I'm going to go with Tyler Nubin.
When they were picking in the teens, I think we were taking Nubin to them in round 1. So I think this is good value. Washington on the board again. You got Chop Robinson. You got Amarius Mims. Where to next? I believe Kendall Fuller's a free agent after this year. You could look corner. I don't think that's where I'm going to go. You could look edge again. We'll just kind of take a peek at who's still on the board. Braswell, I think, is probably my next best edge rusher in this class. I don't think that's a great spot for him either. I think I'm going to go with a linebacker here. Jamin Davis has been solid, but I'm still really high on Jeremiah Trotter. Had a really solid game last week. I think you got to get a linebacker here. We're going to take Trotter to the Commanders.
Yeah, I like that. I do. I like that fit a lot. Indianapolis at 44, maybe a little bit of a surprise here. I'm going to go with Terrion Arnold at number 44. I think that the Indianapolis Colts secondary, like you said, a little bit atrocious, but chalk it up to injuries. But they still need, like I always say, secondary is an extremely volatile position in the NFL. You can never add too much talent. I think Arnold brings some really nice size and like length to the position on the outside on the boundary that I think that the Colts need.
Yeah, that was the pick I was going to make. That or Kalen Carson. I like Kalen Carson's man-to-man abilities. Plus, he wouldn't have to go up against Keon Coleman anymore, which is where he really struggled because they'd be teammates now. Vegas, you mentioned right tackle has been one of the biggest issues of the offensive line. Well, why don't you go get one of the top right tackles in the class and Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma? Really good athlete. He's played fantastic for the Sooners this year. And, now you're going to add some more protection there. I know you could go defense, but I think the value is too good to pass on there for Guyton.
I was going to say you're having a little bit of trouble there.
I blanked on the name.
You have the Atlanta Falcons here at pick number 46. I think a defensive line upgrade is necessary, and I'm liking what I'm seeing from Tyreek Williams lately. I think that's going to be the pick for me.
Yeah. He was a guy I was very high on early on in the year. I remember texting you early on. I was like, I think Tyreek Williams, because all the hype was around
Michael Hall.
I was like, I'm not seeing it. I think Tyreek Williams is the better guy on this team, and he's week after week kind of showing that he's a more versatile player, I think. So we're going to go back to the interior here. I'm surprised you didn't take him earlier. The Packers interior, I'm going to go with T'Vondre Sweat. I think he's the pick here. Just that monster in the middle. The interior, Kenny Clark's getting older. You're going to need to kind of replace him. You're going to need some help on that interior. I think T'Vondre Sweat is a monster, so we're going to go with him here to Green Bay.
I like that a lot. I do. I mean, of course I like it. That's one of my guys. And he goes, what is that, pick number 47? That's 24 picks after I initially took him earlier this week, so I was kind of waiting for something like that. We got a little bit of a run on defensive line here. I'm going with Princely Umanmielen here out of Florida. I think that this would be, don't let the game against the Jets fool you. This defensive line is not nearly as good. You picked Chris Braswell by accident.
We'll swap them. So that's Princely. Yeah, whenever we go with Braswell, we'll just be Princely. I knew that was going to happen.
So so I'll take Umanmielen is someone who has been kind of, I don't want to say rocketing up the draft boards. He's always been someone that I think could have been an easy day 2 pick just based off of his athletic ability for his size. But someone he's listed at defensive line, I think he could kind of play all over. He's like that Tui Pelotu kind of player that the Chargers already have. Why not add another one to that mean defensive line? Because I love the way, quickly I want to say, I love the way that the LA Chargers stacked up against the Jets on 3rd and longs and 2nd and longs with having Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, and Tui Pelotu on the same on the field together at the same time, and having Tui Pelotu rush from the 3-tech sort of kind of position. I thought it was a really, really great game plan, and we might see more teams do that as time goes on.
Yeah, I think the run on interior guys are going to continue here, and I'm going to take Chris Jenkins. A great run stuffer. We talked about it earlier with the T'Vondre Sweat pick, but Jenkins hasn't been as productive this year as maybe I would have liked to have seen, but he's still a very good interior guy, and I think a team in Houston that could use some help there. So I'm going to go with him to the Texans. Yeah,
that's a super solid pick. He made a couple really nice plays against Penn State today, so it was nice to hear his name at a position that doesn't get as much love. It's kind of nice to hear his name come up a couple times because I was like doing things around the house and I'm like, oh, Chris Jenkins, I heard his name again. Like, it's nice to hear those guys get some love. Buffalo at pick number 50 here. A couple ways that I can go. I really like Kalen Bullock here, but I'm going to go a different way. I'm going to go with Kalen Carson at pick number 50. I think just the boundary ability needs to be addressed. I mean, the Bills really do have a lot of problems on the defensive side, and it needs to be addressed. Last year, they went Dalton Kincaid, Osiris Torrance with their first 2 picks. Those were great, and they're proving to be very, very good picks so far. I think it's time that we reverse it and we get them some defensive help. They've been kind of sort of neglecting. I know Kair Elam was the pick a couple years ago, but he has just not panned out at all so far. There's time for him to turn it around, but things are not looking good. You need to add talent now.
Yeah, I agree. Like that pick a lot. Carson was one of my guys early on. I really like him in man-to-man abilities, and he's been really good outside of that Florida State game against Keon Coleman. But we got the Vikings here.
Do it.
I'm not going to do it. I know what you're telling me to do. I'm not going to do it. I think I'm going to go off the board here. I'm going to go get Danielle Hunter, a running mate, and I'm going to take Chris Braswell. But it's going to show us Princely. It's going to be Chris Braswell. But I like Braswell, a guy who's been a very hot riser this year. He's been fantastic for Alabama.
That's a weird way to spell Braswell.
Yeah, it is weird. It was a weird way to spell Uman Milan too earlier. But I think Braswell alongside, I think he fits the scheme really well that Flores wants to play. And I think he'd just be great next to Daniil Hunter. We're going to take Chris Braswell here. Wait on quarterback, especially if, like you're saying, if they want to bring Kirk back, you still have Josh Dobbs there as a backup. And then you've got Jaron Hall, who honestly looked solid in the little bit he played before he got murdered in the end zone. But I'm gonna take Chris Braswell here.
For the Philadelphia Eagles here, I really love Barrett Carter still on the board. I think that's a super solid pick. An upgrade on the linebacking core needs to be done. However, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to take Kalen Bullock here. I think that I mean, everyone is shielded by the Kevin Byard trade, but it's more of a rental than anything. You're still going to have the same problems going into next year with the safety position. Bullock is a young player who also could play a little bit of slot corner as well. So I really like the versatility for the back end of that defense there.
Yeah, I think that's the right pick. And Byard's up there in age anyways. I mean, he's not going to be your long-term solution there at safety. And, Reed Blankenship, you got some guys, but I think Kalen Bullock is a really good pick there.
Nice.
The Pittsburgh Steelers here on the board. This is where I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to take Jaden Daniels here to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Kenny Pickett is terrible. He's just a bad quarterback. And you need someone there that can be a long-term solution. Jaden Daniels has been awesome this year for LSU. He's shown great growth. And, I would feel bad if he has to deal with Matt Canada. I don't think he's going to be back next year. But I don't think Kenny Pickett has been very good at all. And I don't think Mason Rudolph is good. I don't think Mitch Trubisky's good. None of their quarterbacks are good. They're somehow winning games, pulling them out. I still have no idea how this team is above 500. I'm going to take Jaden Daniels here.
Okay. Interesting. I like it. I'm not going to lie. I think that's a very interesting, something that I wouldn't normally do, which is why I like it. I like it a lot. Something that I will do, though, here at pick number 54, Cleveland with the only pick in this second, or with their first pick, I should say, at number 54. I'm going to have to take Johnny Wilson. I'm not as high on Johnny Wilson as some people are, but I think he fills a massive need. And that is your potential wide receiver one for the future. I mean, Amari Cooper's still having a tremendous year, but I think that it's, imagine having Amari Cooper on one side, and then you have a 6'6", 235-pound guy that you have to deal with on the other side. That's something that, I know they have Cedric Tillman, they have Elijah Moore. They are not Johnny Wilson.
Yeah, Johnny Wilson hasn't really jumped out at me this year. I liked him early on. I don't even think he's in my top 10 receivers right now. But, I think he'd be a good fit here. Great contested catch guy. But again, he drops some of the easiest passes that you'll see. And you're like, what is up with this guy? He's got like a 99 contested catch and like a 14 catching. It doesn't make any sense. Cincinnati's on the board though. We took Malik Neighbors earlier. What a pick that would be for them. I think it's got to be tackle. And, Jonah Williams is playing on that right side. I want to go Jordan Morgan, but I think I'm actually going to I want to go offensive line, but I'm actually going to go on the interior of the offensive line. I'm going to take a guy who I still haven't given out hope on, and that is Cooper Beebe from Kansas State. Kick him inside.
I can't believe that he's fallen this far. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. I believe it is Cordell Volson. Hasn't been particularly great for this offensive line. While the offensive line is playing much better this season, you still got to continue to add pieces to it to continue to protect Burrow long term. I think Cooper Beebe can do that for you. Can play on either side of the line. Can even kick out to tackle if you need him to. Very versatile. A guy who I really like. I'm going to take Beebe here to Cincinnati.
Yeah, I like that. Really nice versatility. Another offensive lineman here. Going to go with Jordan Morgan from Arizona. This is kind of a no-brainer pick at this point. Cornerback, there's still some guys available, don't get me wrong, but you can't pass up the offensive tackle talent right now, especially with Tyron Smith being as old as he is and as injured as he is. You need to find some type of replacement at some point.
Yeah, I definitely like that pick. San Francisco here for at number 57. I'm going to go with the corner. We heard that they were pretty active trying to go out and get Jalen Johnson. Obviously, nothing ended up materializing there. A guy who I really like to San Francisco is Max Melton, a guy who I think could kind of play in the slot. You got Charvarius Ward there. I think Melton's got some versatility, could play anywhere in that secondary. I think he makes a lot of sense, and I think he's an upgrade over what they have. So I'm going to go with Max Melton out of Rutgers to San Francisco.
I like that. I like that a lot. New York Giants at pick number 58 here. Going to have to go on the offensive line. We're going all offense so far through these first two rounds for them. And it's going to be Donovan Jackson for me. Yeah. Donovan Jackson, super athletic. We've talked about him before. I've talked about him on my channel. Super athletic for the guard position. Possibly the most athletic guard in the entire class. He's not going to play center because of John Michael Schmitz, but he could probably kick inside even more, play center as well if needed. I think he'd just be, you need something on the interior. If you're going to continue to employ Evan Neal as a right tackle, you need to upgrade the other positions as well. I think that this would be ABC on the first three picks. I think it's going to be, I think that would be good. But before we continue, I think once we hit the third round, we should just motor through the picks.
Got it. For Miami here, Jatavian Sanders, not going to think twice about it.
It's
the same two picks for the Dolphins every time. It's Patrick Paul, Jatavian Sanders. I don't even know who their starting tight end is. So that should tell you everything.
Smythe, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that sounds about right. It's Jatavian Sanders.
I love it. I do. From the cornerback position here, I think that we have to go corner. A defensive line kind of sort of a little bit taken care of here. I'm looking at the corners on the board here. I like DJ James here.
Yeah.
I like DJ James a lot. Reason why, boundary, SEC pedigree, someone that brings a nice length, size to the position, 6'1", 195 pounds, can play that physical brand that we're looking for. And with Darius Williams playing in the slot now, you have Tyson Campbell on one side. DJ James doesn't have to come in and be a number one right away. I love the trio.
Yeah, I think that's a solid pick there. For the Lions here, this one I am kind of struggling with, to be completely honest. We took Leonard Taylor earlier. Imagine if they would go running back here. That would be the funniest thing in the world. Do I go D-line again? I'm going to look at the interior guys really fast, because I do think Jonah Jackson's a free agent, probably going to demand quite a bit of money in free agency. Get a replacement at guard. The question is, which guard? I mean, we've taken Beebe. We've taken Faltano. I'm thinking Christian Haynes. I feel like it's a bit high, but I'm going to get wild. I'm going to just take Christian Haynes here. Kick him in at right guard. I think super athletic. Good pass protector, maybe could, and it took Christian Mahogany. Great. I don't know if we were planning on taking Mahogany, but Haynes is the guy I'm going with here. And I like the pick. He's athletic, good pass protector, and there's not much more to it.
Baltimore Ravens at pick number 62. I always try and look and see what the pick is, and I'm not even realizing that it's right there in front of me on the side. I'm always like, what pick is this? But
yeah.
Pick number 62 here. I think this has to be a corner. We went with A.D. Mitchell in round one. There is a corner that's on the board right now that could be considered a little high with this pick, but I'm going with Chris Abrams-Drain. in this pick.
Yeah.
I think that's a really nice fit for the type of defensive scheme that the Baltimore Ravens like to run. I think that he's a really, really good fit, and it's great value at pick number 62.
Do you think that he's going to be an outside guy, or do you think he's going to be primarily a slot guy? Because that's kind of what I think. I think he's primarily a slot corner in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because we've seen guys that come into the NFL as boundary guys, and then they make their way. Look, like I just mentioned, Darius Williams was a guy who had a very, very good season on the outside in LA, and then signed for Jacksonville and moved to the slot. You know what I'm saying? So but started out on the outside and was terrible. It all depends on the defensive scheme, because how do you go from Darius Williams having a career year to him being absolutely terrible the next year? Then they tried him out on the inside. Turned out to be one of, if not the best graded slot corners last year. So it all depends on the scheme for the most part. I will say with his size and speed, he'll probably be tried out as both. But if you want a quick answer, something right away, I'd probably say he's probably going to be a slot guy the next level.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat with you there. Kansas City, I really don't see a ton of issues with this team. They've lost twice, but yet they still haven't looked very good for much of the season. At least offensively. Defensively, they've been fantastic. I told Chiefs fans they were going to need to look at the offensive line. And sure enough, their offensive line hasn't been even close to as good as it was in years past. So we're going to go off the board here. I'm just kind of picking guys I like here.
Feeling
good
risky?
picks. Yeah. I mean, we just went Christian Mahogany. But I'm going to take Kieran Amagaji out of Yale. I think he could go in this second to third round range. Dude is a monster, and I think he's going to be the pick here for Kansas City.
I love that pick. I really do. And you know what was funny? I was watching for some reason when I went to my parents' house today earlier. We were watching Yale versus Princeton for some reason. And I was telling my dad, because obviously Amagaji's out for the season with an elbow injury. But yeah. I was telling him about him. My dad's like, well, where is he? Because I'm talking him up, and I forgot to tell him that he wasn't playing. And he's like, all right, I don't see him. Where is he? And then I'm like, oh, yeah, he's injured. And he's like, so why did you tell me about him? But anyway, I think he's a great player. He's an absolute brick wall. I mean, and he comes with the smarts, too. You got to be smart to go to Yale. I love it. Yep. Okay. Last pick of this, we're actually cutting this short because 3 rounds is a lot right now at the beginning of the draft season for the most part. Yeah. But I'm going to go off the board with this pick here with the last pick in the draft at 64. I'm going to go with Jonah Ellis at pick number 64.
Interesting.
I think Ellis is a guy that has exploded this year. I believe he's second in the FBS with 11 and a half or 13 and a half sacks? It's one of those two. Either way, he's been incredible so far this season. And just a guy that has that perfect 4'3" size that the Philadelphia Eagles are looking for. I mean, you're looking at a team that has Josh Sweat on one side. They have Brandon Graham on the other side. The pass rush is masked by the fact that Hassan Reddick is so dominant. But Brandon Graham is going to be 35. Josh Sweat is going to be a free agent. There's really not much behind those guys. They're going to need to upgrade that position ASAP. And we know that that's how Howie Roseman rolls. He doesn't roll with, the lines have to be stacked. That's why it took Fatanu. The lines have to be stacked. You're looking at a guy that has never been ill-prepared in the middle. I mean, he lost Javon Hargrave, he signed Milton Williams, and he drafted Jalen Carter. And it's funny because Milton Williams was the afterthought, and he's actually 19th in the NFL in pressures, which is insane for a guy that we didn't expect to really have much of a role at all. So, that's the kind of Howie Roseman thinking way right there.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. Definitely off the board, but I do think it makes a lot of sense. So as you mentioned, we're cutting it short. 3 rounds is a lot, but this was a blast, and we're probably going to end up doing a 3-rounder. Who knows? Maybe this is the year we finally knock out a 7-rounder. Who knows? Maybe down the line.
I did it last year. It was hell on earth. I'll just tell you that.
But who knows what can end up happening. But thank you again for coming on. We'll do this again soon. Leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.